and I kept doing like a lot of things for TV One, and
Hmm.
then they didn't rate as well as they could have. And I remember
Okay.
having a conversation with Kathy Hughes, who I adore,
Yeah.
and Kathy Hughes said to me, "I'll never forget this, Akintunde. I was in the lobby of the Hutton Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is during one of the Stellar Awards
Uh-huh.
weekends. And I
Uh-huh.
see Kathy Hughes, and Kathy's like, what shows are you doing on my network again?" So I rattled off the
Uh-huh.
three shows. And Miss Hughes goes, "Flop, flop, flop." And I was like,
Oh.
I was like,
Oh.
okay.
Is gonna make you laugh real loud. So come on, scream it out. Akintunde.
All right, y'all. I've been talking about it all day, all week, and this brother's finally here. I am super excited and just overwhelmingly honored to have him on the platform. And listen, y'all, he is the senior VP of RCA Inspiration, a division of Sony Music Group. 10 to 1 Entertainment is his company, and a whole lot more. He's a manager. He is a executive producer. I mean, this brother wears a lot of hats, and he's a cool brother, and I consider him a friend. Y'all welcome Phil Thornton to the show. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up? What's up, Akintunde? How you doing, bro?
Man, I'm good. I'm good, brother. Well, you are a busy man, and I do not
Well,
take
so are
it like...
you.
Huh?
So are you. So are you. So I'm honored. I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you, Phil. I mean, now where are you now? Because you can be anywhere in the country. So where are you at this moment?
I'm staying safely in Tennessee right now. I'm in Nashville. So
Okay.
that's why I'm home. I'm home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Have you been able to stay COVID free? Has it hit anywhere near you?
It has hit near me, but not me personally, but I've had a number of people around me, both personally and professionally, impacted by COVID, which is unfortunate because it just depends on the individual. Some people who I thought would have been okay weren't okay, and then some
Wow.
people, so it's you just never know. But yeah, I'm in my bubble. I have my own bubble over here, and we've been working virtually from home, at Sony since March. So just trying
Wow.
to keep everyone safe.
Wow. I can only imagine. I mean, because, to have someone who wears so many hats and has his hands in so many different things, I would assume that you would get a memo from the like, hey, Phil, we need you. We need you to stay at the house. Is that what happens?
Yeah, it's not exclusive to me. We all want to keep everyone safe. It's been really challenging though, still figuring out how to record and do music video shoots. That's been new and
Right.
different, but we are resourceful, and I got a great team of people and great artists that we figured it out on how to do it on a safe basis. So that's been the biggest challenge, and just trying to make sure that nothing happens while we're trying to just capture a music video or
Right.
a recording session. And sometimes things do happen. All it takes is one person. That's just to expose everyone. So we've been fortunate. So
You're right. You're right. I'm going to get right into it because, like I said, I know you had a tight window, and I think when I was really thinking about you and framing my approach to the interview, and then as I even you think you know somebody and you know a lot about that person, and then you do some research and you find out more, you're like, wow. And so I think a good way to sum up the conversation for me would be attitude, because it seems as though because you've always had a great attitude. To the point when I first met you, I didn't even know who you were. Okay, and I probably walked around you for on multiple occasions, not knowing exactly what your title is. And in this industry, a lot of times people meet you with their title. That's the first introduction. And I get that. I'm not disparaging anyone who does share their titles, because it is important. But you've always been a laid back guy, and you've always been a guy whose attitude seems to be, it's not necessarily what's best in it for me, but what's best in it overall. I've seen you do that by you putting, even myself, I've experienced you putting me together with people, opening doors, making contacts. How would you describe your approach to this industry and maybe even life in general?
That's a good one. I consider myself a connector. As you mentioned, I don't. It's not always what's in it for me. I'm always trying to figure out how to just further the mission, and that's ultimately what's important to me. And the mission of what we do in gospel music, the mission of just faith and inspirational content. And I don't always have to be a part of every single deal. If I am, great. But if not, it's nothing wrong with being a connector. And a lot of the books I've read, and I have my executive coach now, and one of the common themes when she spoke with my team and my key stakeholders was, you're a connector. Like, you don't mind connecting this artist to this brand, or connecting this artist to this promoter, or to this TV partner. And it goes the same with people who I respect in this industry. So I think connector is definitely one of those themes for me.
You when I look back at your bio and recognize just how early you got started. I mean, you had an intern at Arista at the age of 15. How does that happen? How do you walk into that opportunity?
Well, I'm gonna go back further. My very first internship was at 12 years old, at a hometown radio station at WOWI, which is a R&B hip hop station. It's still on to this day, owned by iHeart now. But yeah, that was the first internship, which led to the Arista internship. But it was just me being fearless. I had nothing to lose. I was like, okay, I love music. Let me call this radio station, introduce myself to the midday personality, and let me see if I can come down there for a tour. And that tour turned into another tour, which turned into me going down to the radio station weekly, and starting an internship at the young age of 12. And then when I was at the radio station around the age of 15, I started just to see, throughout the course of the years, I would see these record label reps coming in and out of the station. And I was just like, well, what do they do? Like, and so is that how we're getting the music? Because I see it's coming through the mail or UPS or whatever. And so I was just so intrigued and so in awe of like these record promo executives that would come through to promote their priorities. And so I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. That's what I want to do now. Like, I love radio, but now I want to be on the label side. That's what I think I want to do. So I remember calling Arista, and at the time, because I was calling from the radio station. At the time, you needed a long distance code to make long distance calls from the radio station. And so I was an intern. I didn't have a long distance code. I would have to use someone's code. So I remember seeing in the one of the trade publications, Gavin magazine, and they had an 800, a toll-free number for Arista.
Okay.
It was 1-800-6-Arista was the number. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna try. Okay, I'm gonna call. And I had the executive and his extension listed, and I called Jeff House maybe 5-6 times, maybe, and just was like, the first time he was like, oh, how old are you again? I was like, man, I'm 15. And he was just like, man, call me when you get in college, so we'll give you an internship or something. He just tried to blow me off. Right. And for some reason, I just kept calling. And God bless his assistant. Her name is Tajaray Southwood. Like, Tajaray really just kept putting the calls through. To this day, I'm like, why would she continue to put them calls through to this vice president of the promotion department? But that was God. And so that is how I got the internship. And after, it had the show improve, and there was a great experience. I met a lot of amazing people, most of which I'm still in contact with to this day.
So I'm trying to get the mindset of a teenager. I mean, I'm sorry, what are you, in 10th grade at the most?
Yeah, about 10th grade. Yeah.
So you in 10th grade, you're calling the office of the VP of promotion for a major record label. What was your thought pattern? I'm trying to get into your 15-year-old mind.
I always believed the sky was the limit. Like, I never saw a ceiling on my dreams. Like, so when I think about, so I had 3 internships before I graduated high school. I was at the radio station at 12. I was at Arista at 15, but also around the time I was interning with Arista, I interned with this local or regional publication called Mad Rhythms. Okay. And I'll send you the link to the lady who was the editor. She just wrote an article like 2 weeks ago about how this intern changed my life. I was that intern, but I was actually writing. I was doing like some of her cover stories. So I interviewed like ODB back in the day, and
Wow.
the singer Monica when she was first starting. And this is all, I mean, I'll send you the articles. You're going to be like, yo, this guy. But I'm going to send you the post. She just did this about how this young intern who she thought I was a senior in high school. I was actually a sophomore because I lied about my age to get the internship. So I just told her, I was like, I really wasn't a senior, right? I was a sophomore in 95. So yeah, funny enough. But,
that is hilarious.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
But I love music. I loved music. I loved all things entertainment. And I just wanted to be involved. And it wasn't about the money, although the money started to come even at that time, but it really wasn't about the money. It was like, yo, I love music. I love working with amazing creative people. I feel at home. And I just look back and I'm like, man, how bold and crazy. I'm like, if somebody called my office and, like, how would I respond to that? But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the people who gave me an opportunity. I'll never, ever forget them. And I met some amazing people. When I think about, at 15, I met a young Pharrell Williams and his producing partner, Chad Hugo, who at the time were working with Teddy Riley. And, forged a friendship with both he and Chad, aka the Neptunes. And so just think about the people along the journey that God, aligned me with and connected me with along the way that is now seeing it come back full circle. So I didn't understand it at the time. And I didn't understand the various, network executives I were meeting or different people that were coming in and growing the ladder as I was. But it's like, man, like that's a God thing, man. I just tell people, like, because I don't even know of any young interns of that young, you know what I mean? As I look back, I'm like, it definitely was illegal, I guess. They wasn't supposed to be having a 12-year-old. But it's all love. But I had a lot of great connections, a lot of just a wealth of information that I just learned. And it's just, man, forever grateful.
Wow. And so, and then you were at Norfolk State University. Okay. And you wrote a 40-page proposal to I guess flip or upgrade the radio station. I mean, what was that approach? I mean, 40 pages is a commitment. Okay, it's hard enough to get somebody to write a 5-page paper in college. 40-page proposal.
Akintunde, here's the thing about me. I'm a person, I really don't like for people to tell me no.
Okay,
that's where it starts. So that. I remember at the time, our college station, WNSB, still on to this day, it was an all jazz station. And at the time, I'm young. I'm like 19, going on 20. Like, I didn't listen to jazz. Like, now I have such a great appreciation for jazz. And, I'm like, but then it was like, yo, we in school. I'm like, yo, where's the R&B? Where's the hip hop? Like, why we ain't playing that on the station? So one of my fellow students, Candy, she was a friend of mine, and she was also a business major. And we went to meet with the station manager, this guy named Ed Turner. And Ed was an older guy. He'd been at the station almost 20 years. He's like, I'm a coast out, I'm retired. And we were like, man, you should really consider playing R&B and hip hop. And he basically, summarizing, he told us no. Like, this is how the station's been. This is what it's going to be.
Wow.
And, thank you, kids. And I was like, well, hold up. I pay tuition here. And I got, I'm a taxpayer, and this is a public university. So my brain starts going there. So I'm like, oh, yeah, so you got a boss. And that boss happens to be Dr. McDemin, who was the president of the university at the time.
Okay.
So Candy and I had the bright idea to create this proposal because we didn't just want to go sit with Dr. McDemin and just give our ideas verbally. We were like, let's put it on paper. Wow. And so we created a proposal that outlined how the campus, radio station, which you could hear around all of the Tidewater area, was like 25,000 watt station. So, So we really, we did a proposal and, had the financials, we had the marketing aspect, and just showed how it could also be not only something beneficial for our mass comm students, which is typically, who have the most synergy with the radio station, but how it could be beneficial to the business students and the marketing students and the accounting students. So it could be something that a university could use as a training ground for quite a number of students, but also a profitable entity.
Right.
So after that meeting, Dr. McDemin was like, I remember in the meeting, she was like, so who did this plan? We were like, we did it. Like, she's like, what? I was like, yeah. We were like, yeah, we did the plan. And so she loved it. she couldn't believe that two of her students, undergrad, had created this plan.
Wow.
And she personally saw to it that the station got all new equipment. She empowered us to basically, be a part of the station and on as kind of the staff at that time. And then Candy and I ended up having a afternoon drive radio show with another third co-host, a brother named Cletus Cassidy. And so we really had a good time. And then that was another moment where I think about what Pharrell Williams would come in. He would come in and co-host the show. He would come in and co-host my college radio show and kind of bring songs that he would want to premiere. Like, I just left the studio with Ray J. We got this new song. Wait a minute, I'm a world premiere, on the show. And I'm like, all right, cool. So, but that was all in Norfolk State. But that was just, again, not understanding, like, no. Like, I'm just like, who are you to tell me no? Like, why? I'm coming to you with what I deem a great idea. As a student, you should be embracing that we're coming to you with some wanting to be involved and support the station and finding ways to generate money for the university. But yeah, Dr. Marie V. McDemin was the president. She greenlit, and I mean, we were rolling after that. But I was 19. That was crazy. I was like, and I look back, I'm like, why did we? Jeez, even when I asked, I'm still in touch with Candy to this day. I'm like, what were we thinking? What were we thinking? Yeah.
So, but it seems to me that you had this attitude of possibility. You had this attitude that I can get it done. That attitude of faith. Clearly, where did that come from? Was that something that was just inside you? Was that something that you were taught, by your parents? Where did that come from?
I would say my grandmother, my mom's mom, was the one who really instilled a lot of faith and belief in me. I grew up. I went to Catholic school, for elementary school and part of middle school.
Okay.
So it was like part of it, but it was like, okay, this is school. Like, I'm in religion class, but I credit my grandmother as definitely one key source. And during that first internship at WOWI, they were one of the first non-gospel stations to start playing this song called Why We Sing by this new artist at the time, Kirk Franklin and the Family.
Wow.
And so they were one of the first three in the entire nation to play that song. And so I would never forget hearing that song open me up to one, gospel music, but also wanting to learn and study more and have my own relationship with God. So it wasn't grandma's God or mom's God or what. It was like, so that was another defining moment. So it was a defining moment because on the professional journey, it was like, okay, what's this gospel music thing? What is this? So this is gospel? Like, I didn't know a lot about it before because, again, in my household was a lot of R&B and hip hop. Like, I mean, my grandmother would play some gospel and Christian music.
Okay.
But my mom, she listened to Anita Baker and Luther Vandross and all that. What I mean? That's her vibe. But that opened my eyes up. But it also made me just want to get in the Word deeper and start to have a relationship more with God. And so then segue to the second internship when I started, traveling on the road with artists like 112 and Total and Faith Evans and these amazing people. What I learned that their faith was so important to them, and just like they were listening to gospel. We in the 15-passenger van traveling city to city, and they're listening to Commission or Men of Standard or the Clark Sisters, and reading the Bible. And I was just like. So that's why I look back. I'm like, so I was ministered to by these R&B artists who, on the surface, people wouldn't even know their lifestyle.
Wow.
But they were behind the scenes. They up there reading the Bible and talking about God, and and just so it just opened my eyes up again in another way. But yeah, I initially started with my grandmother, and then the second point was Kirk at the from that radio station.
So at what point in your journey would you say that your career and your faith collided? And it became where your faith really became a part of your career per se.
Faith has always been a part of my career, but I have to say, when I moved to New York, that was great right after college. But I would say that chapter when I lived in Los Angeles, that was really a moment where I completely left New York. I was doing well in New York. I was managing artists and producers. I had my office on 42nd and Lexington. I was doing well for myself. And I just moved west. The voice of God said, go west. And so people were like, man, you just gonna leave New York? Like, you gonna break your lease? Like, you going? And I was like, yeah, I have a place to stay. Akintunde. Like, I slept on
Wow.
my friend's couch in Inglewood, California, right on Centinela and La Brea. Like, just
Wow.
I'll never forget. And I had no, at least and then so I remember being an assistant for the first, few months that I was out there for this guy who was producing this stage play. And so I just doing what I needed to do to get by. And so I didn't have, again, I just had the clothes that I brought with me and some clothes that I shipped, and everything else, all my furniture, everything I, given away, and just started from scratch. But that moment was really, it brought me closer to God, because it
Wow.
really was like everything was stripped. It was like I'm starting over in a sense,
Right.
and it was humbling. And I really had to just rely and trust in Him. And so just to
Wow.
see the opportunities when I just stripped everything away just to be able to rebuild, and I was still managing within the people I started managing,
Hmm.
expanded. And during that time in LA is when I started working with Coco of the group SWV.
Right. Right. Right.
And she was doing her initial gospel offering.
Okay.
So even again, during that season is when I was introduced formally to the gospel music industry.
Okay.
And so from there, just like meeting different people and learning this side of the industry. And still, that's when I started to also produce television content. And during that
Okay.
same chapter in LA, that's when I started to write songs for other artists in LA. So I just started seeing things and just my faith. And I found a church home that I really, really liked at that time. It was in Compton, California.
Okay.
And, but I just, again, I just saw things start to come together in a way that I had not even imagined.
Wow.
And so that was, I would say in Los Angeles during that chapter is where I really think my career and my faith really, that intersection for sure.
Wow. And I want to make sure I get two main areas in the time we have, because I really one big part of my goal today is I really want you to be a blessing to a lot of artists who may be watching this, because we're in a
Mm-hmm.
great point of transition right now. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
game has shifted. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody could have predicted what 2020 would deliver to us, and in some very interesting ways. But before I get into
Yeah.
that, I definitely want to talk about your entry into television and into film production, which has now become a major part of your business and
Yeah.
your brand. You mentioned it there about that in that time in LA, but how did you make that journey? How did you get into it? I mean, actively really get into it where I'm actually producing content for television networks and for the real film distributors. How did that happen?
Yeah. It's another story of just me not wanting to take no for an answer. A buddy of mine, Datari Turner, who's still based in LA to this day. He and Jamie Foxx are now business partners, and Datari and I are still really, that's my brother. Like, we speak often. We're still doing
Wow.
some things together as well. But he had a show on BET at the time. I think The Ultimate Hustler or something like that with Dame Dash. It was
Yeah.
like they kind of, it was a similar to the Apprentice. And it was
Right.
like the version that they made for BET.
Mhm.
And so I was like, yo, Datari, because Datari's background, he was a model. Like, he was a Ford model doing all these great campaigns for Tommy Hilfiger and Sean John at the time, Ralph Lauren. I'm like, man, how you do that? Like, how you go from modeling to being a TV producer? Man, I want
Yeah.
to do that. And so
Yeah.
he was like, all right, let's do it. I got another idea. And so the idea was he wanted to do a show about an athlete and their spouse, but it was
Okay.
through the lens of the spouse. And I was like, oh, that's a fresh concept. And this is like, keep in mind, 2004 going into 2005.
Okay.
And so this is pre-Basketball Wives and all these shows. And so I was like, man,
Right.
like, this is pretty cool concept. So
Right.
I had reached out to Tamia and Grant Hill.
Okay.
And so we pitched the idea. And at first they were on board, and then some things happened. Tamia's health, she had some health challenges at the time. And so she pulled out. But let me
Okay.
rewind. That idea, we went to this young baby network at the time called TV One and sold the idea.
Okay.
So Rose Catherine Pinkney was the head of programming.
Yeah.
Jonathan Rogers was the president of the network.
Yeah.
And they saw these two young Black men coming in there with this great idea and this energy. And they were like, yeah, we love that idea. We'll buy it. We want to do it. So we like, great. So we, so back to Tamir and Grant, we like, okay, good. We got Tamir and Grant, and that unraveled because of Tamir's health, and we understood, but it was like, man, like we so close.
Right.
So at the time I started working with Coco, like I said, when she was working on her gospel record. And so at the time people were calling like, man, we really got to, how can you get SWV back together? There's promoters wanted to book them. Teddy Riley wanted them for some big event. And then like the Beat in LA wanted them for a show. So I ended up, getting all the ladies on the phone, reuniting them. And so Taj and I, who's 1/3, Taj is 1/3 of the group SWV.
Right.
And she's married to NFL Hall of Famer, Heisman Trophy winner, Eddie George.
Right.
So I was like, yo, Natar, I know we can't work it out with Tamir and Grant because Tamir's got her situation going on, but what about Taj and Eddie?
Right.
And so he was like, yo, that's a great idea. So went to Taj and Eddie, we presented the idea, and they loved it. And they allowed us access into their lives, and we ultimately filmed a show called I Married a Baller. We did one season on TV1. It was, I think, 6 episodes. But that was our learning on the job, because I didn't go to film school. It was like, we learned a lot. And because I was producing and I was the music supervisor. So it was just like, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a whole, I don't know what we were thinking just again, but I don't regret it because it taught me a lot about just production, hands-on experience for sure. So at that point, TV1 was like, well, what else you got? Any other ideas? And so it just kind of kept going. And with this young network that was trusting, so I did a few more shows for them, Famous People. Then there was another show called Party Boys that me and Kirk Frazier and I did about just these 2 party promoters in DC that, Mark and Taz. So it was just different things. And, it wasn't, and I look back, I just looked at actually the footage from Party Boys just the other day and all the celebrity friends that I was able to pull in as a part of the series. And it was great, but that's where it started. And I kept doing like a lot of things for TV1. And then they didn't rate as well as they could have. And I remember having a conversation with Kathy Hughes, who I adore. Yeah. And Kathy Hughes said to me, I'll never forget this, Akintunde. I was in the lobby of the Hutton Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. And this is during one of the Stellar Awards weekends. And I see Kathy Hughes. And Kathy's like, what shows are you doing on my network again? So I rattled off the 3 shows. And Miss Hughes goes, flop, flop, flop. And I was like,
that's Miss Hughes too. That's her.
That's her. So she's like, flop, flop, flop. And I was like, oh my God, like she just bust my little bubble. But I needed that.
Wow.
I needed that. It was a humbling experience. And I said, Miss H, the next one I'm gonna bring you, it's gonna be a hit. I promise you, it's gonna be a hit. And that next show that actually Datari and I brought was a show with Lisa Ray McCoy, The Real McCoy, and that really was one of those shows that really took TV1 to a different place. And the show also aired on the Style Network, which was at the time part of that whole Comcast family. And then he started running some episodes as well. So that was really a blessing. So that was the next one. But that motivation, I always tell her, I'm like, I love that. And then from there, it was I started doing stuff for BET and then Lifetime, and now I'm doing something, with some other partners, and I'm really excited about in the linear cable and streaming place. But it all started there, and that again, LA chapter, and I Married a Baller with Taj and Eddie George.
Interesting that I always tell people, we had the first Black reality show. We shot a reality show here. It only aired local, but before College Hill, we had a show called Comedian the Life of. And we shot it right here in Columbia, South Carolina, and brought time and sold the advertising on the local UPN network. And my wife and I produced it. And I never forget that whole process of playing, wearing all the hats, being on camera, being a part of the actual production, paying for cameras, paying for post time. Even at one point had to come in and actually do some editing. Didn't really know what I was doing, So I get that whole process, and you seem to be comfortable wearing those different hats. You even something key talking about attitude. You even took the criticism from Miss H very, very, very well, because a lot of people would have been like, "Oh man, I can't stand Kathy Hughes, man. Because I mean, that's how folks do. When you tell somebody something they don't want to hear, They get very defensive in most cases. But you took that, and your next show with them was a smash hit. That's attitude, Phil. I mean, and I think sometimes we miss that, as people of color, as artists,
But you got to be honest. And the thing is, all feedback is not going to always be, you're so great, you're so amazing. To me, that I love the not so positive feedback, because that also helps me. Like, I love the positive, don't get me wrong, but I went back immediately after that conversation with Miss Hughes and say, what about these shows didn't truly connect? Like, is it just the timing? Is it just the concept?
Right.
And I had to be honest with myself. And that was such a humbling experience. But I literally, last time I saw her, I just, every time I just thank her for that. But she did now hear her tell me how proud she is of me, and she's watching everything I do. I'm like, that is like, okay, the ultimate compliment when you got a Kathy Hughes, who's someone I've admired and known for many years, but just to actually say, well done. Like, that is like, but that motivation that day at the Hutton Hotel, we were by the concierge desk. I can tell you exactly where we were. I was like, geez, you said flop, flop, flop.
You should get some t-shirts with that on it. Flop, flop, flop. That's all. All right. I know our time is tight. So let me, it's 2 points I really want to make sure I hit. Talk about that journey to RCA Inspiration. Cause I talked to you, I remember the point in time, I talked to you maybe a couple of months after it was announced, and it came out of nowhere. It was kind of like, wow, my gosh, and I mean, it came from me, and I'm sure the industry, but of course, clearly, I mean, that didn't just happen, but talk about that, how that happened, and what's that journey been like dealing with, I mean, literally some of the largest, biggest names in the gospel music industry right now, music industry overall. I mean, you're working with them in some way, shepherding their careers.
Yeah, the chapter at Sony and RCA Inspiration, it's been truly a blessing, a godsend. It's just, man, but the journey to get there, I didn't see it. I really didn't. And it was sudden even for me, because when I was at a company prior to being at Sony Music and RCA Inspiration, E1, which I had a great time and worked with some amazing artists, Jonathan McReynolds, Pastor Shirley Caesar, Erica Campbell's solo record, and even I was doing some signing artists on the R&B division as well. Layla Hathaway was one of my signings. She had the big live album, Angel cover and everything. And I was really having fun. I started out as a vice president of marketing at E1, and a year and a half in was promoted to general manager. Wow. And it was exciting, but there were some great things happening externally and on the surface, but I felt that my season was coming to an end, and I'm never the person to ever want to overstay my welcome. Okay. And it's nothing against the people. There's some great people that work there then and now. Yeah. But I just felt that it was time for me to turn the page. Okay. And as I started to have those feelings, I just started just praying and talking to God. And I remember this was in March of 2016 when I started having those strong feelings, and there were just different things that just led me to that point. And then in May, I got I was actually on the way to a show. Kirk Franklin had a tour, I think 20 years and one night or something, the tour he was doing at the time. Yeah. And the show was in Memphis. So I drive to Memphis because Kirk and I are friends. So I'm like, I'm going just to support and hang out with my brother and just see what's happening. But actually, when I got to the hotel and I'm just, get my clothes together for the show that night, I get a call. And it's from a friend of mine who's like, I guess Sony had hired as a headhunter to find, someone to run the division. And he was just like, hey, I need you to take this meeting, this, and I was just like, huh? Like, it was just so much going on. I'm like, I'm in concert mode. I'm not even thinking like, a job opportunity is coming my way. But long story short, he was like, you got to take this meeting. I was like, well, I'm out of town. I'll be back tomorrow. And I ended up, that meeting was with our CEO of the division, Terry Hemmings. Wow. And he explained to me the vision behind why RCA Inspiration was, moving from New York to Nashville, and some of the goals and aspirations he wanted to see. Right. And that conversation really moved me in such a way. I said, let's figure this out. I would be honored. And that led to, contract negotiations, and they moved it really quick because in June, I mean, like I said, I literally resigned. I was like an E1. I wasn't in a contract at that time, believe it or not. And so it was an easy exit. I was like, all right, y'all, like, so I'm out. Like, and in hindsight, I probably could have handled that differently, just being honest. But I was so frustrated and just, not exactly happy with how some things were going. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going over here where I'm celebrated, not tolerated. And I'm grateful. And so that I started the end of June, but we announced it in August. And we were really, it was quite a transition because you got, I'm walking into like the all-star, I'm walking in, you got on your roster, it's Kirk Franklin, it's Marvin Sapp, it's Donnie McClurkin, it's Fred Hammond, all these heavyweights. And I'm like, okay, like, what, you got a new artist, Travis Green, who they had signed at the time, who had the intentional song that was starting to take off. And I was like, okay, like, it was just a lot. And then I'm in Nashville, the existing staff was in New York, just that whole transition. So it was some scary times. It was some rough times, but I can say now, 4+ years later, it feels like home. I love my staff. They work hard. I love my artists and partners. And it is truly a tribe. We really, it's a family environment, and just, I love it. It feels like, it doesn't feel like work. And that's the ultimate, fulfillment for me personally, is like, man, I just love the people I work with, and just, we just have good times. And even in the virtual setting, we still have our kind of virtual coffee breaks and different things that we do just to kind of make sure that we're, just checking on each other, and, it's just dope though. And then the artists, like I said, it's just really like Kirk could call, like, I mean, he might FaceTime like, yo, man, I just thank you. Just, I love what y'all doing. I thank you. I'll take it for granted. Same thing with Marvin Sapp, Kiara she'll call or send these really nice voice notes or just FaceTime. I mean, it's just amazing how we work with a really great group of artists. And some of the newer ones that we have that have joined the team, the Melvin Crispell the thirds, the Does, like some of these new partnerships are really exciting, and they just kind of complement what we're building. But yeah, we got a really, really, really great year ahead of us.
Man, y'all been really dropping hit after hit, releasing new artists, Corinne Hawthorne, I mean, just major, music. And I'm loving the shift that's going on in gospel, but gospel is embracing the old and the new, and understanding how to celebrate both. Because that sometimes can be a tricky thing. And you all seem to be doing that well.
Yeah, you to me, I always tell my staff, we have to acknowledge the past to know where we're going.
Right.
And that is, to me, I'm all about respect and deference, because if there wasn't for a Donnie McClurkin or a Kirk Franklin, or even before that, a Andre Crouch and Walter Hawkins, and, like all these amazing people and Pastor Shirley Caesar, Mahalia Jackson, like we stand on their shoulders, and I'm grateful for them. So any way that we can pay homage or respect. So even with Corinne Hawthorne, her current single "Speak to Me," which is #1 for the on the charts, I'm grateful for it, but it also she's paying homage to Donnie McClurkin. That song samples his "Speak to Me," which is a classic. So I remember even reaching out to him and, like, friend, you gotta, you hit him, and I'm gonna hit him, but you hit him first. It's your song. And so, but just, he was so honored and was so just like, absolutely, yes, this is, you have my blessing. But again, we have to really pay homage to the greats and show them the respect they deserve, and give them their flowers while they're still here. And, I'm not going, catalog is, we got, probably one of the biggest catalogs in gospel music at Verity, because we have Verity, Gospel Centric, Be Right, all of those fall within the RC Inspiration umbrella. So so much music there. So, and I just see the amount of revenue still generated to this day from, like I said, the Fred Hammonds, the Hezekiah Walkers, the John P. Keys. Like, you just go down the list, and like people are still streaming it. So I embrace it. I celebrate it, and we continue to find ways, throughout the year, beyond Black History Month and Black Music Month, which are amazing, but just trying to find a way that we can celebrate our legacy and our history 365. So that's been super important to us, and we got some ideas and initiatives coming in the new year to really honor our catalog. Yolanda, Yolanda Adams, her catalog is in there with us, and so it's really exciting, really, really exciting. Just some of the things we got coming, but you gotta give respect to the past.
It's gonna make you laugh real loud, so come on, scream it out. Akintunde.